You're very welcome. Yes, there's a lot of things to say about this movie, and also even, especially being up at this late hour, there's just a lot about this horror film in particular, where a lot of this film is it's not forgettable at all. It has, I feel, talk to me even in the title of itself. Those three words are
Hmm.
honestly the element of surprise with "talk to me."
Hmm.
The three words alone, "talk to me." Mhm.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a repetition that's used throughout the movie, and of course, that's a way to conjure the dead. And this movie's quite interesting, where it's a horror film, but it plays a lot like the Sixth Sense, where it was about trying to talk to the dead, but they wanted to get to know something. They wanted basically to have someone to convene with, to communicate with.
Oh
And
yeah.
and in this movie, this is like, yeah, the dead talk to you, but they don't mean well. They want
No,
to
they
hurt
don't.
you,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're very conniving in that way.
Oh yeah, they don't mean well at all. There's like a lot of I always found the mix and turns of this film rather invigorating, and also to an extent kind of poetic, but also misdirection that is misdefined in the most like compelling of ways, which is what I thought. Even like, because apparently to me it was almost like the there was more to like the terror portion, but then a lot of the terror has tons of connections in which kind of is what makes most of its characters question their judgments, their morals, their past. But even then, it even I just like how it, I mean, no spoilers, but I like how it all comes down to ultimately who's kind of who like you'll like it like for audience they'll probably find themselves thinking, whose side are they on truly in it way once more of the terror evolves just from the three words "talk to me."
Right, right. Well, I mean, I could just throw this ticker up now, just so then we'll just get into spoilers,
Yes.
just so then we can actually talk about the film. Uh yeah, I see what you're talking about. The horror element isn't from, body horror, and look, there is the element of physical impact and all that sort of stuff. But what there really is in this movie is there's the horror of, it's the story of a young girl whose mother was taken from her too soon, and her trying to reconvene with her. And she finds a way to do that by grabbing this hand that these people find at a party, that'll take you basically into the world of the dead, where you
Oh
can see
yes.
them, you can convene with them, they'll take over your body. And through that world, she finds a way to speak to her mother. Or is it really her mother? We don't know.
Exactly. And also like even that hand, even in this scenario now, I'm just thinking like even if this film alone kind of thing, like I just kind of like as I was thinking like multitasking of taking notes of this movie while watching this movie, the one aspect that really comes to me the most so much is that basically the past creates a trail for answers, and also the haunted spirits come around in fragments. And ultimately talk to me, which is where I find its brilliance. Is it's a terror film of components for feelings of suspense, but also brilliance, definitely
Mm.
kind of thing, because like this is very different from what we're used to. And I also feel, there's that punk attitude added with its setting. It's almost like a game of a vengeance, and it's a new kind of horror that is fierce of unexplained circumstances, truly. Mhm.
Oh wow! How about that? Well, the thing is, the thing that makes the horror work is how delicate it is to the characters. You're
Mhm.
not just seeing someone who's another body count being killed here. For instance, when Riley gets possessed and he ends up bashing his face in against the table, I was holding my hands up, going, "Oh my god, this poor kid!" in most horror films, I wouldn't care. I just say, oh
I
yeah,
I feel
that,
you on that. I even felt that emotion too, because you're just thinking, okay, what is this kid ever doing to make this fall onto himself? And then I think that's almost like the component of this film is like they choose who would be unexpected kind of thing. Like I'm sure from trailers we wouldn't have expected much of that in this
oh,
film kind of thing until that's the element of surprise. Like the one who is probably the least violent and not violent at all, like gets the raw end of the deal, which is kind of what ups the suspense, I feel, because you're just asking yourself why is this innocent one to target, you know?
yeah,
You know?
and you also see the impact it has on the family because like when someone gets injured or hurt or dies in the movie, it's we don't just kind of cut away to the next group of victims or someone running in the woods away from Jason Voorhees or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, where we actually see the impact on the family and what it has on them when these horrific events occur. We see how it affects the mother in the movie, who if I were to go on my notes here, who played the Riley's mother in the movie? That's okay. I got it right here. Actually, Miranda Otto. She
Oh,
does. Yeah.
Otto.
Yeah. She does a
Miranda
wonderful
Otto.
job playing like a grieving mother for a son who's basically on the verge of death in the hospital. And you get some other
Yes,
great
and
performances.
and at and
Go ahead.
there's like tons of like there's tons of like drama among personality, and that's really what fits for this film, because especially if terror, because it's like, it's almost like even in Otto's performance, like being the mom who lost someone, it's obvious she wants to find a reason to hate anyone who had anything to do with it,
Yeah.
and that just plays into the emotions of the terror itself, where it's like she has to try and learn to accept whatever terror is surrounding what happens, that it's unfortunately that even as much as she doesn't want to believe it, it's not what she thinks,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, in a way, she's sort of like the ghost himself, so she's just filled with rage. But
Oh,
that's
hell yes.
Yeah, but but exactly what they want to give you. But yeah, the movie's great because it takes its time building character relationships. It mostly builds Mia's relationship with her deceased mom instead of opting for straight up horror. It's building a tale about a girl who's trying to come to terms with her mother's suicide.
Yes.
And because of that, the movie works so much more than just a typical horror film.
It's definitely one where I know the directors for a fact they want their audience to use their minds. And ultimately how they do that is with Talk to Me. This is what they do and how I view it. They test the waters of the past. They test the waters of how deaths happens. They have one that is possessed. The horror is diverse and spread out. The emotions spiral in stages of places, but also they're just a mystery to every emotion surrounding the film, and especially when you have Mia, who is the one trying to cope with grief. Like honesty and dishonesty comes around as the allies like grow even darker. Truly.
Yeah, and I really like the way they use the hand in the movie because the hand is sort of like the big MacGuffin of the film. It's the thing that gets you communicated with the dead. And the funniest thing is when they were using that hand in the movie is like how they kind of mixed it with social media, where
Yes.
there were people coming in with like their phones filming people. When these people are convulsing and they're on the verge of death, instead of helping them, they're out there documenting it, having a grand old time, laughing at someone in horrible pain.
I think unfortunately that film, now that you say that, that kind of just shows the perfect label that has, even though it's kind of sad and dramatic, very dramatic actually, but that just in a way it's the right context of how our society has become in the actual world, but these directors do something creative. Because sadly, in this day and age, people broadcast depressing stuff like that. But in this film, it's like if you broadcast that shit, it's gonna have consequences, even worse, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And these guys aren't like the kind of people just sitting up in the rafters yelling, "Oh, I hate social media." Like the directors of this movie, Danny and Michael Filippo, I believe
Mhm.
is their last is how you say their
Yep.
last name. Yeah, there's these two twins from Australia who actually had this. Have you ever seen their YouTube channel? It's called Raka Raka.
Oh yeah, I
Got
have.
like
I was getting into it before watching Talk to Me. Just
yeah, it's
Mhm.
like, and it's funny. Like these guys are basically like social media influencers. Like their videos are very high octane, high energy, catch your attention in short amount of time, and they're very much a part of
well,
the social media
well,
generation.
we know now. Also, have talked to me even now. Well, now we know who our role models will be to go to test the boundaries of social media in a way. But even though this was about Talk to Me, not about social media much. But what I'm saying is, I love how their usage of testing the limits has really proven themselves worthy in Talk to Me. Truly, it really has.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Well, if you see their videos, it's you wouldn't expect the movie to be as slow paced or as thoughtful as it is. You know, I was expecting something with like a lot of fast paced Sam Raimi type of horror shots here, and instead we don't get that at all. We actually get this slower film, you know, about grief and trying to come over that and trying to be with our family when our family needs us. But you know
Yes.
that again that was it's a movie that uh doesn't try to just focus on the horror element but rather more the psychological terror by making you care
Yeah.
for these
And also,
characters.
yes, and it does. And also, it also kind of has that notion where there are demons that are good and bad, and some must be demolished to protect the others. But then
Hmm.
the question is who even gets the bigger raw end of the deal, truly. But this film will make the audience, like, truly it'll make their minds race with a lot of thought, race with thinking back to the game they played, race with the previous outcomes. Like there's so many things that are moving obstacles toward where the terror lies. And I like where it lies because it's like the terror and the direction is making its bed, but it hasn't found its person to lie in it.
Right.
you know?
Well, I just like how the movie was methodically paced, and that's what kind of builds up on the terror, and especially the style too. You know, it's not a highly stylized thing. It's a very slow style. I'm getting undressed because I want to get sexy for this late night thing. And
well, this movie has a whole lot of that. This movie will have a whole lot of fun. So,
well, oh,
yep,
there
we
was
can look
that one
forward.
horny ghost in it that was real.
Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't one I was expecting to see at all.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
Um,
also there was that one thing I did not also expect in this film, like coming to think about it, I did not expect even looking back on Otto, I did not I it's been ages since I've seen a mom play someone so hateful or like that or very demeaning kind of thing. I'm
Oh,
just
I mean, I would be hateful too if that happened to my kid.
I would too, but man, her levels of it was like times 10,
Was
literally.
it?
In a
Like
way, kind of.
it seemed very kind of
The
well
helicopter parent,
placed.
let's just say the helicopter parent vibe to the fullest. Kind of.
Okay, I guess so. I
But
don't
yeah.
know.
But
But
honestly though, the film though is just like Talk to Me is just, I do believe, like, with all the press it's getting and the attention it's getting, I think, and it's rare I say this, but this is probably one of the best horror films this year, I think,
hmm,
because it's different. It's creative. It's a new direction. It's new directors. It's
yeah.
people, it's something original. And the originality of this hasn't been something we've seen in a horror film in a long time, I feel. you know?
Well, it works because it's tied to an emotional story, and it's not just a bunch of people getting killed. That's why it's an original horror film. And we've been seeing an elevation in horror films recently.
Oh yeah, especially from A24 as well.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
look, X, other films like that, a combination of horror, combination of fantasy, a combination of suspense,
right.
even the fantasy and horror kind of come back and forth.
Yeah. What was the horror film where it was like a nightmare Airbnb and Barbarian? That was it.
Yes.
That was an incredible horror movie that
Oh, that
looked.
actually made me feel scared for like the first time in a long
Yeah,
time.
although I will say towards like the end, it gets a little silly when it gets to the whole big reveal and what it is, and then how often we see that reveal. At a certain point, I'm like, all right, this is silly. Like I can see like the fake tits on it.
Yeah.
But
For And look, we're already approaching close to the Halloween season. I wonder how long Talk to Me will be in theaters for, honestly. Probably a while, if it
really,
keeps making money, you know?
well, let's see. Has it come out already in theaters, or I
It's
think it comes out tomorrow?
yeah, if the people are watching this, you could watch Talk to Me. You could watch it tomorrow, kind of thing. Yep.
Yeah, they
Go
can
watch.
watch it tomorrow, or they can watch it on Thursday. But
Yes.
I liked how they shot the opening sequence too. It's particularly impressive how they followed one person through one continuous take at a party, and
Yep.
then and he's trying to see if his friend is okay because he goes into a certain room, he finds his friend, his back is turned towards the camera. It's filled with like cuts and bruises, and you're like, what happened to this guy? You could tell there's something wrong with him. He's had sort of like episodes before. He puts like a coat around his back. He says, "It's all right. Let me take you home." And then he sees everyone with their phones, and he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Put your phones away." And then his his friend ends up. I don't want to give away the
Yes,
rest of what
but
happens.
and that's probably a
Even
good that's probably a good idea. But Mike, with what you just said, you're reminding me of my mode when we're in critic mode, kind of thing at our screenings. How I am with that stuff, you know.
Oh, what I liked about it was that it kind of reminded me of the opening of Halloween when you were
Yes,
going through the kids' like eyes, and it was just through one shot, and it went through the whole house. Except through going through a house, you're going through a party in this sequence, and the movie establishes sort of like
like
what
what
you're
to
going to be in,
expect,
what you're going to be in for later on. But then it slows
and
down, and this time, when it slowed down and was developing his character, I wasn't bored with this character because a lot of times I feel bored with them. Like
I I
when,
f- I feel the same way, especially if it's like someone who's a killer or if someone like a spirit or something. Like,
yeah,
like I think like one film that kind of came to my mind, even if it's a little off topic, but it's just the same thing still. And I thought it was a clever idea, but just the same thing. But my main connection is like Talk to Me is not repetitive, but like a movie like Sinister, for example. Yes, that was very creepy as an idea, but look, it became the same thing, repetitive once
hmm
again. They made sequels out of a sequel just because the first one made enough money to do so. But Talk to Me is that type of film that will not need a sequel, honestly.
yeah, and I really hope it doesn't get a sequel, especially with the way it ends. Like it could easily set up for a sequel, but you don't want that to
No,
happen.
we don't. Like they could a way to do a sequel, make a whole different story where it's like it correlates, but it's not continuing,
Right,
kind
right,
of thing.
right.
That's kind of like the Rocky franchise moving on to a Creed franchise.
Yeah, you could do that, but it's still kind of like even if you you could cut to different characters, kind of like how they did it with 28 months later or weeks later, I should
Yes.
say. But
Yes.
it still wouldn't work as well,
Yes. I
as
was
that sequel didn't either.
Yes, my thing with this movie though is I was just kind of thinking, like how it's been in festivals and when I this is the type of film that I could see in a festival for sure. It's
hmm
creative, it's different, it's artistic,
Well, it
you know.
started in a festival. It got picked
Yeah.
up at Sundance,
Oh yeah, because
and
I
then
remember some people I few film critic friends and colleagues like, oh, I have to watch this again because I haven't watched it in months, so they watched at festivals and whatnot.
Right,
You
they
know?
saw it at Sundance, and now it's coming out again. They gotta, oh, boo-hoo, they gotta see a movie again. How terrible.
Or I'm sure, they consume tons of media a day. Then it's like, okay, didn't actually pay attention to that one completely,
Yeah, well, I mean, as a critic, that is a problem. I will
Yes.
say that I run
Oh yeah,
into is that.
we're about to hit that mode in a few months, honestly.
Oh God, October's coming, and
Oh,
I'm not looking forward to
applications
it.
are already open.
I know they're already open, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to apply.
And it's the easiest application though. Well, a little off topic, but that's what I mean. I'm sure we're gonna see a whole lot more horror even, but there's nothing. Talk to Me though. I would love Talk to Me to have this, honestly. If it could have anything to do with Chicago International, I believe, even though it would be way later, like bring those directors again. Bring them. They would be the right voice for this festival, truly.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, they're fun.
Yes.
These guys are they're a light of energy. They bring in because if you haven't seen their YouTube videos, it's basically like have Harry Potter versus Star Wars.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, or have Ronald McDonald go in and terrorize. Like, no, he'll go in and wrestle a bunch of people. It's like a bunch of stunts and action, like mixed together, and it's like watching fantasy fights, and it's fun. But I didn't expect the guys who make the fantasy fight things to make something like this.
Well, I just thought of something. Here's what I think I need to have now. I want to see, maybe they'll have an embalmed hand. Then what if I did as a prank back? We're gonna play Talk to Me. Then what if all of a sudden that actually happened? The whole imagination thing,
Oh,
Let's hope not. But
I'm just thinking of the Imagination Land in South Park now.
Okay, that's a good one. Or imagine there's a South Park episode for Talk to Me,
But yeah, this film was different than most horror films because it was more rooted on its characters rather than its horror.
It's rooted in its characters. It's a dark past, especially if the character Mia, the very dark past, and having going through many hard times. It's almost like the one of the hard times is the one who is facing the challenging turmoil. Yet again, she's not getting the bigger raw end of the deal like the audience would probably expect. It correlates to the one who doesn't deserve it. But that's kind of like the director's approach to make this different with a different aspect, to not make it predictable, to have to help us, because I feel it's important in horror is to create questions for its audience, because you want even though it may be a horrific experience, you also want it to be an experience that's one about like bring you into another world of a form of terror that's from the imagination of new directors.
Yeah. And surprisingly, although they're YouTubers, are pretty good at it, because the terror isn't about the hand or about how gory the ghosts are. It's about what they make you do to yourself. About the ghosts of the past and things that haunt you. They're coming back to get you, and that's what makes the terror really work in this film.
Oh, hell yes, it does.
Yeah, more than some of the special effects. Like you have like the typical ghosts are like all slimy and drooling and stuff like that, and like those elements didn't work as well for me.
You got the smiling grins that are just creepy of those,
Yeah, you have the creepy old lady who's like in a wheelchair who's like smiling and grinning, telling you to like do something terrible.
Yeah,
and like some of that didn't work as well. Like I kind of would have liked to have seen but I get why they did it, because like immediately you get a scary ghost. You look at it and it looks like it's dead and decaying, but it would have been more creepy if they showed just like a normal person and they just told you to do fucked up things.
Oh yes, for sure.
And they could just take over your mind.
I was a little worried how far those fucked up things could go.
Oh, well, I mean, they went pretty far. I know, right?
That was the thing that made this film rather intriguing.
Yeah, well, that's because
with my press screening being at an funny thing is, being at an Alamo Draft House, I was trying to think to myself, is this going to be a repulsive experience? What food should I order to avoid repulsiveness?
Oh,
You know?
well, don't get their
Yeah.
cauliflower wings. They're gross.
No, not at all. I think that day I just did like the tenders or something, but because I wasn't so sure how. Then no, it was more. It wasn't really repulsive. It was just horrifying. You know,
Yeah.
kind of.
Well, when the kid like pulls out his eyeball at
Oh,
one point.
that made me kind of just do this to my eye. I'm just
Yeah,
like, oh.
yeah, because they go there. And if you've seen their YouTube channel, that's very similar to their content. They
Mhm.
get very gory, like with their stuff.
And because when you think about it, someone gets their eye hurt like that, that's kind of very hard to heal at that point.
Well, yeah, the eyeball's like the most sensitive
Yes.
part of the body, so that's the one thing you want to get hurt the least. But
Oh yeah, for sure.
what do you think the film was trying to say about tampering with the dead?
I think the film was trying to say, honestly, with tampering with the dead, I think the film was trying to say, like kind of respect that the past has its place in a way, or always remember if someone's dead based on someone's behalf, that in a way the consequences still lie with them, even though that person who doesn't deserve to be forgiven is still living. It's a reminder that it's always going to be with them. And this is like the film making that person that people would view as the bad influence be the one that has to suffer the bigger consequences mentally and internally and spiritually.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, like if I were to look at it, it's saying don't tamper with the dead because the dead will tamper with you.
Yes, and
Because
the dead does tamper with you, and everyone who's gonna go watch this film, don't mess with the dead. I'm just gonna say that now. Maybe don't mess with the
yeah,
dead before watching this movie. I don't know what's gonna come back to haunt you after, but I'm not
because
spiritual.
yeah, they'll play with your loss, they'll play with all of your emotions and then use them against you in this
Yes.
horrible way imaginable. Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's it's funny. The way this movie works is just structurally how they put together the screenplay. Like each act kind of nicely coincides with the next part. When you see that moment of horror when Riley, abuses himself to what this hand actually does, to how it relates to the mother, to how it relates to Riley, and you see how each element kind of like gets nicely put together. It makes for a very solid uh well constructed horror film.
That it does. And also it just like even when, like I love how there's a moment where even people know it's a bad idea, but then then the kid's like, "Can we please try? Can I please try?" That is the indication we are like, "Oh, shit's about to go down."
Oh
Prob
yeah.
down very horrifically. you know?
Well, when he was gonna try it, I didn't think it was gonna get as bad as it did. I thought they were gonna pull him out of it.
I know, right? I remember in the screening when that happened. I just remember people be like, "Oh my god!" And I think I recall shouting, be like, "Okay, that's over the amount of stitches probably a doctor could handle in one setting,
Yeah, I
probably."
know. He
At
he
that
looked
point,
terrible at the end. You ever see Prisoners? He looked like what Paul Dano looked like after Hugh Jackman just beat the shit out of him
oh,
and tortured him.
I agree. Here's what he looked like. He kind of looked like that, but then 2 weeks of no treatment whatsoever after,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Because if you remember in Prisoners how they laid that whole thing out, Hugh Jackman literally kind of structured how much he was going to beat the shit out of Paul Dano in that movie.
He did, but I will admit, like Paul Dano, like kind of recovered like really fast in that movie too. I remember he just kind of bandaged up towards the end, and I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like his
Yes,
whole face would have just been wrapped in
and
bandages
and
or just
and and even then, I'm just thinking, okay,
blown up.
each time Hugh Jackman's character is abusing him, that's like additional fines, one after the other,
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's life in prison at this point for many things, but that's just a movie. But that's the thing, horror films that test the limits of things, and you find a point. It's a little bit like that in Talk to Me. You find a point in Talk where you know certain people that there's not going to be light for them, but there may be light for others. Just like how we're talking about how Paul Dano gets his ass beaten prisoners. You know, there's no light for him either. So it's like,
Yeah.
but the people who are like saddened and dealing with the emotions, they don't want to realize that because they're so distracted, thinking there's nothing else or no one else to blame. You know?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good point. And it's just funny how people are just obsessed with just getting someone who they're
Who was
recording
there?
someone's suffering because at one point in the movie you find out these guys knew this hand was dangerous and they decided to use it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows how careless society can be when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to handling power. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
Oppenheimer reference if you really think about it there.
Oh hell
So,
yes to that for sure. And above all, Oppenheimer is still killing it at the box office right now.
is it
Very
really? Is it
you'd be
actually doing well?
Oh, yes, they got scalpers even going selling IMAX 70 tickets.
Wow, that's amazing. And
Well,
I could just
honest,
and I
I'm
could
sure.
just imagine a lot of Americans walking out being like, "That was boring."
Oh, if I got that reaction, I will lose it. You know,
Mm,
I may have to go revisit Compassionate Spy. It's at the Siskel with Steve James. You know,
oh
I feel like
yeah.
I need a little pre-Oppenheimer refresher now, a little
Right,
bit. You
right,
know,
right, right.
a less
Well,
shorter version. But back to Talk to Me. But I will say though, you know what? With this though, like testing the boundaries in horror, I feel there it always depends on the writing of that director
yeah.
ultimately. And these directors are original. They know how to do it right in a way, you know, especially if probably a limited budget and whatnot, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And like I mean I will bounce back on the originality thing a little bit. Like I think it's kind of been used a lot, the whole conjuring of the spirits thing. It's just this time it's like in the hand and like it's not that original, but it's well constructed. And
Oh,
that's
that it
why the
is.
movie works. How they're able to uh basically slowly reveal what this hand does, or not slowly reveal what the hand does, but they slowly reveal how this hand relates to Mia
Yes.
and to her journey
Hmm.
and how we get there. And then when we get to that third act, it's actually quite rewarding. You don't feel like you're kind of robbed in the end. Because I remember as I was watching and I'm going, oh no, don't end right now. Don't end right now. That would just ruin it. But no, they keep going for a little while and then it does reach a huge boiling point that will make you go, "Oh my god!" I think when you see the ending.
Oh hell yes. No, I want an embalmed hand looking like Talk to Me for some reason. You know?
You could get that wrapped up in ceramic wrap. Well, they said like apparently there was a hand under it. They do say that in the movie.
Oh yes, definitely. And
Right,
whoever's hand that is, I'm sure that's why they're cursed. You know?
right, right. So,
I'm
how do you
sh-
think the movie handles its undertones of loss?
I think it kind of dismisses it for a while and
Hmm.
lets the terror of it evolve in the
Yeah,
context where it's like, okay, why are the regrets coming when the horror is happening? Oh, the regrets are coming because of the loss and what happened. And then there starts to come a moment where even as me as an audience member, as a critic, is like, oh wait, there's more to it than we know. There's
hmm,
underlying issues also outside of it. All those contributors contribute to the tendency of the horror, the tendency of the weird catastrophes, the tendencies of the mistreatment, the tendencies of how weird things keep evolving. I'm just like, every judgment or moral that is negative plays a negative central, which even grows the evil spirit of this film.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's that's true. Because what that evil spirit brings out is basically uh like this sense of regret that turns into anger, that turns into rage, that ends up having these characters use it against themselves and
Mhm. Yes.
ultimately destroy themselves for its own purpose.
Yeah,
But
now I'm just thinking, given this is in the UK, I believe, right? United
Australia,
Australia, oh yeah,
yeah,
Australia. I'm just thinking now, kind of thing, because I've been seeing IMAXs for Australia. I'm thinking, oh, if they put Talk to Me in an IMAX, which is never happening, that IMAX would be haunted. That spirit would lurk on that giant ass screen. You know?
you talk about that 70 millimeter screen showing that big hand on there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I could
Yes.
see that.
I could picture the IMAX falling apart, having issues, and it would be like, oh, this place is haunted because we played Talk to Me.
Yeah, and I just love the way this movie generates horror because it doesn't just use jump scare, jump scare, jump scare, which it could do. You know,
It uses anxiety provoking
yeah,
aspects.
you're using anxiety
We, we,
provoking
we,
aspects.
you see, that's the thing. We need more anxiety provoking aspects. We need more psychologically evoking aspects. We need more where it's like the growing of evil grows just out of life itself instead of something, because that's
Mm,
almost what this is, growing out of life itself,
yeah,
kind of
it's
thing.
growing out of the regret that you might face in life, or
Hmm.
the loss, grief, and how that ends up manifesting into something terrible
Oh yes,
that
this was.
can ultimately kill you
Mhm. Oh
or
yes.
kill your friends. And I kind of, one thing I liked about this movie is I liked all the characters. I never felt like I wanted anyone to die in it.
Me neither. I'm like, please let everyone live, but help, but honestly, truly, help them help them fuck the spirit up so it can't fuck them up anymore. You
Right.
know?
I was expecting that kind of ending where they all just start beating the shit out of the spirit, or I expected somebody to win in the end or come out on top,
Yes.
and you don't really get that. And that's what made this movie feel so interesting is that the bad guy kind of ultimately wins.
Oh yes, the bad guy ultimately wins, but then he leaves kind of lessons for those who have survived. It seems like,
Well,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
he's basically taught them not to use him, but
Yes.
they're still going to. So he's going to enjoy himself. He's going to or themselves and have fun with themselves along the way.
Oh yeah,
And
and it's amazing how there's all of this in literally just almost under 100 minutes, literally.
mhm.
You know?
Yeah, the movie's like hour 34 or something like that.
Yes,
And
like
it's got yeah, and it's got so much more subtext than I find in, some movies are going 2.5 hours plus. I get so much more out of this movie than I do with, the recent Marvel thing where they're gonna
oh,
have
don't get, oh, I'm getting tired of Marvel right now, and if guys are watching this, you could be mad at me for saying that, but yes, I am getting a little tired of Marvel right now, kind
I'm
of
not
thing.
even watching Secret Invasion because
Me
I watched
neither.
I watched a little bit of it and they're like, oh, the squirrels are gonna come. I'm like, oh, those green alien guys from Miss Marvel? What do I give a shit? And they just turned it off.
I mean, we're just, I don't know. It's everything now, and it's just like not even special anymore, you know? You
Yeah.
know?
Well, that's starting to happen with Star Wars too. You're getting so much of it that it's starting to lose a lot
Oh,
of its luster. Although I will say, Andor was great.
I loved Andor. That was a good
Yeah.
show.
Oh yeah, the
However,
whole one
I, d-
way out scene was amazing.
I don't review TV, but I'm kind of thinking about it. It's more that I have to change up my whole format of things to review TV.
Yeah.
That's a lot of disciplinary stuff in my mind that my mindset cannot get its act together to do right now.
Right. No, I understand that. But I mean, I like how this movie was different than most other horror elements because
Yeah, it
it's
was.
about yeah, because it's about so much more than the dead bodies or the scary ghosts. It's about what those
Yes.
ghosts mean and how they
Yes.
come back to haunt you for the things that
And
you feel bad about.
and I'm gonna say one thing. I'm glad it wasn't a monster, like a legit monster, as in like a visual monster. I am so glad it was not that for a
It was a lot
change.
of different monsters that
That's what
we
I
saw.
mean. Like hidden. Like not like a Wendigo or something like that. You
Right.
know?
Right. There's different ones to see at different times because they just keep coming up with different dead people each time they conjure them.
Yep, and not like the boogeyman either. You know?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I thought this movie was gonna go from one direction, and it ended up in another one. I really, it really
I
kind of took me off guard, especially when that young kid's started hurting himself. How do you think this movie like handles misdirection?
I think it handles misdirection by kind of just opening another can of worms to give its audience an idea of what new thing the person who is surviving or are surviving, what they need to make a priority before it gets any worse. But sadly, the spirit is kind of beating them to it by one or two steps every time, you know?
Yeah,
Because as soon as they realize something, it's like, boom, something bad happens. Boom, something bad happens, you know,
right.
right when there's a realization, almost like a Final Destination thing, but no, not by cars falling on you, not by falling off a ladder, not by a ladder going through your eye or shit like that, you know?
Right.
and
Oh yeah,
that's why I can't stand that Final Fantasy shit. All those stupid deaths, well, not stupid. They're just
Final Fantasy.
yeah,
Final Destination.
well, whatever. Final Fantasy, Final Destination, whatever. It almost was
Yeah,
like a Final Fantasy of deaths, better way to say in those films, you know,
yeah.
kind of thing. Because those films, the way they do it is not really horrific. It just looks like comic book almost.
Well, yeah, it's silly violence. I mean, here's the thing. Here's what separates silly violence from something that's more realistic. Yeah, and it's how much we care about the character.
Mhm.
And in Final Destination, they're all disposable. We don't care what happens to these guys. We don't care if they. We want to see how cool it looks when they get wiped off a roller coaster. We're not
Yeah.
thinking, "Oh my God, that kid just took out his own eye." You
Or
know,
or or the fact that a guy's apartment sets on fire in Final Destination 2 because he puts his hand through a garbage disposal to get a ring, but then he can't get out. So then his apartment's setting on fire. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Okay. All because your hand is stuck in a disposable, you know,
yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
well, there's a lot of dumb deaths in that movie, but that movie's more about how fun the dumb deaths
That's
are than
exactly
really.
what it is. And that's why when it happened, I just found myself laughing and not even scared a lot of times, you
Well,
know?
yeah, Final Destination doesn't really have any real horror to it. Those movies are more comedic than anything.
That was just based off something like, let's get creative by keep on making people die in the most craziest of ways, you know? And they
Yeah,
still do that
I could
sometimes.
kill them in some ways. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I was just watching this. I'm going, what do these ghosts want in the end? Do they just want terror, or do they want someone to
I think it's more they want
unearth
respect.
something?
It's more I
Hmm.
think they want respect or to respect that someone's gone because of someone else's bullshit. You know?
Hmm.
But in
Hmm.
the end they want them to prove that their bullshit has consequences and they want to prove the consequences is them hovering over them like helicopter ghosts until they understand how much consequences they truly deserve even though they're not getting it because
Oh,
they
what kind
they
of
got away with it.
consequences did Mia deserve? What did she
Well,
do?
Mia didn't deserve really any for sure. It's just more like accepting from her
Right.
errors that the consequences that there were, you
Well,
know?
I think she accepted that her
Yeah.
mom,
Yes.
killed herself, and she couldn't accept that until the father read the suicide note to her.
And then she had her own underlying problem still kind of thing. It's more that she continued, I think, to do wrong after the death, which makes sense. I think it's almost like the spirit is trying to say you kept going down like a deep hole,
Hmm.
like when you were already in one, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Well, yeah, because I don't think that spirit in the end was her own mother.
no,
That
it
was just
wasn't.
something pretend. No, that there was something pretending to be your mom
Oh yeah.
that wanted her to feel even worse about her suicide.
Oh yes,
When
very
she
much so.
already felt bad, but it was playing on her guilt to take advantage of her.
That it
And
was. That it
yeah,
was. There's a lot to say about this movie. It's one hell of an experience. It's different. It's invigorating. It's horrific. It's like it's mentally it's mentally intuitive. The subtext is great. The writing is great. The horror is gonna blindside you, not in a way that is just like mesmerizing. I think this may be one of the best films of 2023 in terms of horror, and one of it's just an idea of one immersive terror experience that's unforgettable, I think.
Right. Well, I do, especially what happens with these characters in the end is unforgettable, and where it leads to is somewhere where I didn't, it didn't see going. It takes you and turns you in other directions and shocks you and revolts you, but it also gets you thinking a lot, and that's what a good horror movie does.
That it does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder what's next. Well, we're already getting ready for horror films coming up. A lot of the venues throughout Chicago, like Music Box, getting ready for their Music Box of Horrors. And I think some other theaters are going to organize stuff like that. Now I'll truly get into my horror jam a lot around that time for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Tarek, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome, Mike.
I think we can both say we highly recommend this movie.
Yes.
I would give it 3.5 out of 4 Guinnesses. I think you would give it, I don't know.
I'm giving this movie honestly a 3.5 out of 4.
Okay.
Yeah. I love this film, and I mean, I loved it. There's still some things I think about periodically where I think a little bit of improvement was needed, but not a whole lot. But these are new directors, giving them benefit of the doubt. But they're for this work, this is kind of astonishing, for a new direction.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I really wasn't expecting a movie this thoughtful from them at all. I was expecting something very comedic and over the top and silly. And when I heard these guys were making this movie and everyone was saying it was so good, I'm like, is it really? And then I saw it, and then I was like, yeah. That was actually a thoughtful film that wasn't just dumb horrors.
I know. I felt
horror's really having a new renaissance, it seems, between Barbarian and between, oh God, what were some of the other ones that have come out?
Barbarian. I mean, you had Halloween Ends last year.
That
doesn't count. Yeah. No, they're gonna continue. They're not done with that shit.
Although they definitely killed Michael Myers for good in that movie. But
then wait, they'll be like, he's born again.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. He's like a spirit.
Yeah,
he'll just wind up in someone else. I think that's what they were setting up with that movie.
Oh yes, for sure, definitely. Yeah. But more horror, more fun times. A24 does pretty good horror, and I had much more fun with this from A24 than I did with X, kind of thing.
Year. Oh, that was the other movie I was thinking of. I was thinking
X though was rather creative.
I was thinking of X and Pearl.
Pearl, yes, Pearl.
Yeah,
Pearl.
See, that's elevated horror. Where it's because again, that movie works because you actually felt bad for the killers in a way, and you kind of understood why they killed people, but at the same time, don't kill people.
I know I'm Music Box Theater now. Music Box, I'm being positive. Don't worry. How they do a highs and lows film series. I feel a highs and lows film series would be perfect, where it's put maybe put talk to me first, then put X right below that,
Yeah.
Do that. Reason why, take one seriously, then one not so seriously, and X would be the one not to take so seriously.
Right. Although Pearl I'd take a little more seriously, although that's still kind of comedic in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets especially the scarecrow scene.
But if it was Pearl and X in a high and lows, I would say have Pearl go before X for sure. Still, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yes.
Well, Tarek, thank you for coming on. You can check out all his stuff at Movies with Tarek.
Yep.
And then you can check out all my stuff at YPA Reviews. The YPA. I'm sorry.
And also going forward, we'll have. I'm sure we'll have other events coming up, and also going forward, where I'm just awaiting right now I'm awaiting a response from Rotten Tomatoes. So we'll see with that kind of thing. So we'll see. But otherwise, I hope that there's just more that we can offer, and we'll get more creative. We'll think of new ideas, whatnot, like how Mike, we did that Spectrum episode not too long ago. I'm almost thinking, what if we continued that going forward when there's other films Spectrum wide that come to theaters or whatnot, or if they do other things, kind of thing. But because that's something to figure. But yeah, we're open to ideas. But yes, follow Mike at YPA Reviews. You could also find me at movieswithtarek.com, and we're also both part of the Chicago Indie Critics, CIC. CIC has been good to us, and with all the directors and members of CIC, also thank you for always encouraging us as critics to keep growing as critics, for sure.
Right.
Definitely.
Thank you for signing up for me. No,
yes, you're welcome.
Thank you for doing my own credentials for me. Like, yeah, see him at YP. That's my job.
yes, for sure. Yep, our jobs. But yes, anyway.
Guys,
yep. Go see Talk to Me, people. Go see Talk to Me.
See, it's coming out in theaters. Well, fuck it, today, really.
Yes, maybe if you got A-list of
Thursday.
Yeah, if you got A-list of AMC, secure your seats today, kind of thing.
You guys can see it. So go see Talk to Me in theaters officially Friday, July 28th. Though I think, wait, let me double check. Yeah, in theaters July 28th, but you could catch it July 27th, like in an early screen.
You could, and be prepared because cinemas will still have people wearing pink for Barbie still. So
yeah,
however,
we still saw a lot of people. I still see a lot of people with pink for Barbie when I was that.
Yes, but honestly, if you're worried about the color, you don't need to wear. I don't think there's much pink to offer with Talk to Me. So yes,
yes, right. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you listened, if you liked what you heard, subscribe to YPA Reviews. The YPA stands for You'll Probably Agree.
Yep, and I'm Tarek of Movies of Tarek. You can also find me on Twitter at Movies of Tarek, and I'm also on TikTok and Instagram, all that jazz, posting my reviews in any form of coverage or anything movie-wise that comes to my mind. I'm kind of getting sporadic with my postings right now.
That's all right. All right. Sure. We'll see you guys later. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later. Have a good night, guys. Yep. See you around.